Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today about some updates we've made recently to our NITRO Forms tool. This is applicable to NITRO Forms in on-prem, Office 365, and also now just this past week for the portal version of the Forms Designer. So my name is James Restivo from Crocanian Software, VP of Operations, and I'm going to taking you through some of these updates we've done and giving you a walkthrough of what those updates mean for you, and hopefully gives you some more options for designing your forms and makes it a little more flexible for you. Before we get started, just real briefly about Crocanian. I think most of you know who we are, but we just a quick overview. We have business applications that we sell for out of the box, like IT help desk and facilities management. We also have this NITRO Studio tool we're talking about today. And then we can also do custom solutions for you on top of either our out of the box applications or just completely separate from those. All right, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I am going to get right into this and start showing you the new features and what we're going to be talking about. So I'm just going to change applications here real quick. And GoToWebinar is giving me a little trouble with that, so just hang with me for a moment. All right, there we go. So now you should be seeing a news release we have up on our website. We will be sharing this link with you as well as the recording of this in a follow-up email. So don't worry about remembering the URL at this point. But this is just a quick layout, quick overview of what we've done with the NITRO Forms tool. So we have this new table layout feature, which I'll be showing you on today's demo. We also have enhanced column label options for overriding column labels and descriptions and giving a lot more flexibility there. We also have this column placeholder option where you can put a placeholder value in our line HTML control and kind of display like a PR number or item number on top of the form itself, so it makes it a little more obvious and presents it in a better way. So we'll talk about some of those things, and we also have a few other things we rolled out. I'm not going to talk about every single one of these things, but I just want to make you aware that these things are here and they are new to the tool. All right, so I'm going to jump over to our demo and just get right into it. And certainly there's a questions box on the webinar GoToWebinar controls panel. So if you have any questions at any time, feel free to type them in the box and send them along. We have Jocelyn on the call as well to help answer questions. If she can't get it answered, we'll save it to the end of the demonstration, and we should have some time at the end to go into those. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created just a really basic list here for a travel expense report. And when you're using just standard SharePoint, and this happens to be the modern UI, which you're going to get in 2019 and in Office 365 space, it's just going to look like a standard SharePoint form. Not much going on here. It's just a list of all the things that you are entering into the form. That's great, works well, but we want to enhance that and make it a little more UI friendly, a little more, a better layout, right? So we're going to jump into NITRO Forms, and I've got a blank NITRO form here. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the table controls. So this table control gives you a great flexibility in how you lay out the design of the form. First of all, you can select the size of the table that you want to start. So we can do a 4x4 table, we could do a 3x2, whatever size you want to start with, we can go there. I'm actually going to start with a 4x4 table here, drag and drop it over, and now you've got your table interface. What you can do with this now is really great. So you can add in fields just by dragging your control, dropping it in, and there it is, right? But the other great thing about it is, we get this question like, how do I remove that column label, or how do I kind of keep them separate or do something a little different? One way we can handle that is by lining up those two boxes next to each other. So I've got this line HTML control, right, that we're going to put in a just column name. Let's call it employee name. And we're going to go ahead and center that, hit apply. Now you can see it there. Let's see. Then you can drag your control over here. But as you can see, there's a little bit of a problem now. We've got that column label here again. All right, what do we do there? So we have this override option. So these are all new override options for overriding display names, overriding descriptions, overriding the column and label description settings. So you can do a lot over here with those controls. What we're going to focus on right now is this option to show or hide the label column label. Simply uncheck that, hit apply, and now you have a control say next to the column label, and you can see it looks a lot better. We can go through that process again. We'll just go ahead and put another line HTML control, get rid of that line, enter our text like that. Give it a colon, we'll put it in the center, and we'll hit apply. And then we can put our location of trip column there, and we'll do the override setting again to remove that label, and there you go. All right, so there's a few other boxes here we can fill out, but rather than spending your time looking at that, what we're going to do is jump over to a form that I've moved along in the process a little further, where I've added a header up here, I've added a few more fields. And the other thing I want to add on here is the purpose of trip, right? So this is a travel expense form. You want to know why the trip was taken, what's the purpose, is it legitimate business reason? We want to get that field on there. But if we just simply drag and drop it on there, it's not going to look that great, right? So what we provided is an option where you can actually merge these cells. So we're going to merge these 4 cells together. We're going to do the merge cells option. We're going to merge 2 columns and 2 rows. Hit OK. Now you have one big box to put that purpose of trip field. Now, purpose of trip is, that's the column name. It's not that great. It's not that descriptive. So we want to override that. And that's where these override settings come back into play. So we can override the options to say, okay, you want to show either the display name or we can show the description, which I happen to put a description in there that says describe the reason for this trip. Now, we could also override that display name up here and enter that same text, or we could override the description field and do the same thing. So there's a few different options. And in each one of those, you see you have full rich text control. So even if you wanted to, you can make that italicized. You could make that a red label, give it red coloring or some other styling to it to make it a little fancier. And the other thing is we do have a lot of controls within the table itself too. And this over on the left-hand side doesn't look that great. So we're going to go ahead and look at our cell properties, go to column layout, and we're going to position that label on top of the field by choosing this vertical option. We're going to click OK. There you go. Now it looks a little better. So then we're going to also take a look at the fact that you can stylize the form. So one thing you can do is add a color to the background. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to go ahead and add a color background to this section. We're going to put it in the, that's perfect. Okay, we're going to go with that kind of darkish gray color. But now they all kind of look the same, and we don't want that. So we want to go ahead and modify each of these cells independently. So again, in cell properties, you have an option to choose your own unique background color, and we're going to go ahead and choose white. And we can do that for a couple of these here. Like that. All right. So then the other thing we can do here is we can build out this form a little further. So I'm going to go ahead and drop another line HTML, just give a separation between this top form and the next section we're going to add. And we're going to add another 5x2 table here for capturing the receipts. So we're actually going to capture the receipts here, and this is where I'm going to show you the floating attachments control. So we have our new table down here, and of course, as you can see, you can put multiple tables on one tab, on one section, so you can really just change the layout as you go down the form. So within this field here, what we can do is add some of our attachment fields. So rather than using the attachments field down here, we're going to create a floating attachments field using this hotel receipts multi-line text box. Now, first of all, we're going to add a label over here and call it hotel receipts. We're going to go ahead and center that, and we're going to bold it and apply. And then on the hotel receipts field itself, we can have this option to convert a column type to something else. It's a multi-line text, plain text field, so we have this option for attachments. I'm going to click that, and it gives us an option to put a different text on the button. So we do upload hotel receipts here and apply. And now it appears as a button. And again, we have that column label issue, so we're just going to go ahead and override that. And then we could also go into our cell properties and center that to make it look a little nicer. So you have a horizontal alignment of center. Hit OK. Now you got that in the center, you got that in the center, so it's looking a little better. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead for the next section here. We're going to go into a little more detail about the border controls, and I'm also going to show you that preview option. So let me go ahead and get over to that. We're going to continue without save. All right, so I've built it out a little more with, add some more styling to it, add a few more of these receipts, places where you can upload receipts for your travel expenses and things like that. So we can take a look at what our form is going to look like by hitting the preview option. So this is a new option we have up here where you can actually take a look at what your form is going to look like before you publish it. So you don't have to save it and publish it. And yeah, it still doesn't look quite right. I think we need some borders there. So what we can do is go into table properties, look at borders. We're going to give it a width of, I think 1 pixel is enough. We're going to give it a kind of a darker gray color than the background, make it stand out a little more. Then you also have some options for styling the border. So you can do solid, dotted, dash, double, whatever makes sense for you, whatever looks good. We're just going to go with a plain old solid background or solid border here, and it's going to look a little nicer. So we're going to go ahead and preview that, and you'll see that looks better. Definitely looks better. And we can do that same option down here with the attachment controls. So you can see when you're changing around the colors, it actually will save the color you last selected. So you don't really need to remember that RGB code. It might be good to jot it down just to make sure everything is consistent, but the tool remembers what you chose previously, so it will pre-select that option for you. Go ahead, OK. And you can see we got that border around there. And so that looks a lot nicer. Now, the other thing here is that we have different devices that are going to be looking at this form. We could have desktops. We could also have tablets. So the preview option also gives you a way to look at the form in a tablet view. So you can see it's got the kind of a more vertical layout, and then the mobile view is going to be the same thing, just a little less width, but it does show you what your form is going to look like. And in developing this and preparing for this webinar, I went through a couple different iterations of this form just to make sure it looked the way it looked good in the mobile interface, and I used that preview feature. And I'll tell you, none of these forms that you're looking at today are published right now. So everything I've done is through that preview feature, just saving the settings and getting it there. So you don't have to have that published, and you don't have to have your users see it in progress. You can hide it and then publish it when you're ready, and when you make sure it looks the way you want it to look. Now, within this tool, there's a bunch of other options here for styling your layout. Now, let's say you chose that 4x4 box to start, and it's just not enough. So we can go ahead and add a column to the left. We can add columns to the right. We can add columns above, rows above and below. So you can change that around. Then if you want to delete it, just click in the column or row you want to delete, and we're just going to go ahead and delete that. So it just makes it really easy to change it around, so you're not locked into a particular layout from the get-go. All right, let's see. There's other options here for your cell properties. So I'll just walk through a couple of those real quick. There's options for cell padding, so you can change around how the cell is padded from the top to the bottom. It can give you a little spacing between the border and the actual label within there. It gives you some options for alignment. We talked about the center alignment, but there's also alignment for putting it towards the top or the bottom. So if we do that here, you can see it moves up towards the top. We do have options, the background options I showed you. We can actually apply our own border options within the cell itself. So if you want to highlight a particular cell or give it a better border, a thicker border, you can do that with the border option. Column layout, I mean, you can have the width of the label be that can be relative, or it can be defined by how wide you want that to be. So it could be scrinched down and be more vertical text, or wrapped, or you could have it go all the way across. The label position we talked about. The text within the cell, you could, or within the column label, you can give that its own background color. So this one, we don't have a column label here. We actually removed all our column labels except for this one. Here, let me go in here. So we give that column label text, let's give it a red background, and hit OK. See, now it's got a red background. Come back in here and we'll look at the color of the text itself. Now I probably want that to be closer to black. We can also size it differently. So we can go ahead and put it higher or lower. I think 12 was by the default, so it's not going to look that much different with 11, but we can go ahead and change that to something like 21 or whatever. And see, there you go. And then you can position it, obviously. Then there's some padding around that between the label and the value itself. So even, within one of these cells, you could have it separated out so it looks a little better. And then the column value could also have its own background. Let's give this, just to style it a little bit, give it a bluish background. You'll see now there's a blue background behind that column label or column value. So it gives you, it really gives you a lot of options to stylize the form and make it, the color scheme of whatever your organization is, and you can really match it up and even make it look like existing forms you might have on paper or in PDF form. It gives you a lot of flexibility there. Let's see if there's anything else in here to talk about. There's the padding again. Oh, the font too. You can have a different font color for those value settings when they get entered into the field. And then on the table, the settings are, we talked about the border, we have that. The table itself could be a different background than the tab. So we apply that gray background to the whole tab. But for this particular table, maybe we want to have let's give it a dark background, see what that looks like. So you can give it that. That doesn't look that great, but it just shows you that you have options for playing around with this stuff. Then you can also do some column, general column layout for the whole property. So you have the option to do this at the column, the cell level, and then also at the table level for all the cells within that table. All right. And then, so the other thing I want to show you here today is that you can put in a column placeholder in your line HTML. So if you go back up to this line here, all you need to do is simply put in a reference to that field. So we're going to reference our ID field and just do something like this. ID, apply. And then when we go and I think when we preview it, it should show that. Let's take a look. Yeah, see, it doesn't show it there. It's because there's no ID for this item because we haven't created any yet. But you can see it's not showing the text. It's just showing there's a space for that ID field in there. So you can use that on purchase requests. You can use that on work order numbers. You can use that even within our help desk. You can have the ticket number displayed right on top of the ticket. Make it really easy for your users to know what they are, what they're doing and what they're looking at. And it sounds like we're getting a few questions coming in. So Jocelyn, do you want to jump in and read some of the questions? I'll get them answered.
Sure. Hi, folks. My name is Jocelyn. I'm working behind the scenes with your questions. But James, could you answer the question on, are you able to paste an image from the clipboard into a field on the form?
You should be able to. Let me see. So you're talking about pasting it, doing a copy paste onto the SharePoint form. I think that's there out of the box. I don't think we're doing anything to prevent what SharePoint allows you to do natively.
And then our other question is, can you remove the color after you select it, changing it back to the cross out if need be? Going back to what you were demoing a few seconds ago.
Yeah, so if you want to remove that color, this color for the label, I guess. Yeah, we could do that. Column layout. We got to go back to what it was. And the background was white, so we just bring it back to white, and put it over there. And then it's usually the grayish or dark gray. You can just bring it back to whatever the color was they had it previously. And actually, if you don't like the settings, you can just delete the field, reset your settings, and put the control back in there and play around with it and get it to where you want it to be. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other questions out there?
Paul's also asking, so just to follow up on this pasting an image in from the clipboard, he's saying image paste follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And can you demonstrate that, please? Because AFAIKOOBTB SharePoint does not properly work.
As far as I know.
Does not properly work.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I've seen copy and paste work in some SharePoint forms, maybe not in others. But let me go ahead and, this doesn't look the greatest. I might want. Well, I'll just change the table background here or something back to our 210 gray and go ahead and publish it. Where is it? There and there. That's close enough. A little reddish. That's all right. We'll go ahead and publish this. So it's going to take a second to get out there and published. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take a snip of this. And you might not see that because I think I'm not sharing that application, but I'm just going to take a quick copy of this image and see what we can do with it. So now I've copied that to my clipboard. We're going to refresh this page. And we're going to hit new, which should bring us that's not doing that. What did I do over here? Let me try publishing that again. Sorry, folks. All right, I'll go back over to our travel expense report site. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to pick up that the form has changed. So that can be expected sometimes when you're doing it right away. All right, let me try that again. And we'll go ahead and open up new form. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know why it's not liking me today. Usually it doesn't do that. Usually once you publish the NITRO form, it is overriding the standard SharePoint form. I'm going to try it back on the classic side and see if it makes a difference. It does not. So apologies that it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Let me just manage my forms here. And I think the problem is that this is the default. So let me go ahead and so you have to make that the default form. Nope, that's not it. All right, so I'm gonna copy the URL. Not sure why it's not, I'm not sure, I'm not finding the option where I can make that default form, so I apologize for that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and copy the URL. We'll get into that form directly and see what it looks like. And yeah, best laid plans. There you go. It doesn't seem to be doing what I needed to do, so I apologize for that. But let's go ahead and take a look, because as you're looking, oh, that's I did all right. Okay, hold on a second. Let me copy this again. And we're going to go ahead and put it into this purpose of trip field just to have a space for it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it work in this scenario, but that's okay. We'll take a look at that, Paul, and we'll get back to you offline on that piece of it and do a little more digging into that element so we can get back to you. All right. Any other questions from the pool that we can take a look at? Okay. All right. So a couple other features that we have going on here, I'll just mention them in passing because we didn't talk about them in detail on the call, but we Also added in this concept of read-only functionality for associated items. So let's say you have an associated item column, like on our IT help desk, you have time tracking, or in our purchase request program, you have purchase items. We can make those as read-only by column permissions. So in the purchasing request scenario, once that has been approved, we already lock it down so nothing can be changed. But we were providing that functionality, but now you can do that natively with the NITRO forms in building out your own application. So once you've reached a certain status on a particular form, any of those associated items can't be changed. No new ones, you can't edit any existing ones, and you can't delete any from that form. We also, mentioned all the different override options we have over here. I'll kind of go through some of those others in a little more detail. So let me go bring this up. And you have, the option to override the display name, so that will change what appears there. Of course, we'll have to show the column label in order for that to do anything. So let me go ahead and show the display name. We're going to override it to something else. Location. Apply. So see it changes that label right away, right on there. We can override description. If we had a description in there, we wanted to show that description, we could override that. So we can say area where, region where trip was taken, something like that. So now you can change that label over there. And you have all these options for converting to different column types. We showed you the attachments, but within this, it's a single line of text field, so you could change it to a NITRO lookup. You can change it to an associated item field. You can actually change it to an external data field. So all those options, we're giving you a little more control over here on the right-hand side for those things, rather than going into the column settings on the left-hand side. Then we can also, that's always been the require that change that requires information. So. Yeah, so it seems I've got another question. Jocelyn?
Sure. So Blake asked, do you have an option for making fields read only without having them grayed out? Perhaps not as much of an issue now with a background cell customization, but still question.
Yeah, so you're saying when it's read only, it gets grayed out on the form. Yeah, I think we can control what that looks like a little more with these options. So if you mark it as read only, you can play around with the settings, and we'd have to test that to verify it. I haven't played around with that specific setting myself, so certainly you do have a lot of options with these. The way things are displayed, I think it should be overriding whatever SharePoint is doing. We're trying to give you as much flexibility in here as possible. All right. Okay. I think, any other questions, certainly feel free to chime in. I know I wanted to just give you the overview of what this looks like. We can certainly, I could probably spend a lot more time going into all the settings, play around with all the different things, showing you what it can do. But I think really encourage you guys to, if you have NITRO forms already, get it updated on your site and take a look at the different options. We're releasing new features all the time. These we wanted to kind of particularly highlight because they are really important changes for our users who have been asking for level of flexibility that they haven't had before, and this really provides that for making this really a truly InfoPath replacement type tool. So we hope that you get a lot out of it and have some fun playing around with it. Actually, I had a lot of fun designing this form for the webinar today. It was pretty neat to go in and see all the different options I had for making it do what I wanted it to do. And actually, one other thing I want to show you, I'm just going to pause my screen for a second. I want to bring up something else, something I was playing around with. It took me about, just about an hour to do this. So just bear with me for just a moment. I'll get over to our demo site. Another demo site we have, and we're going to go into where we take us. I'll share my screen again in just a moment, and we're going to make sure it's still on there. Okay, just need to find it first. Okay, so I'm going to see if it's here. It should be here in this site. I apologize for not queuing this up ahead of time, but I think it's going to show you that you can really get pretty creative with this stuff and make it look interesting. So just kind of as a, so I'm going to share my screen again now. Let's see if I go to 3 more pages. Okay, I think you can see it. So I was like, let me see if I can recreate this form, really document in W4 form. I think we're all pretty familiar with what the W4 form looks like, but I went in there, I was like, you know what, let me see if I can do this. It took me about an hour. It's not exact, I'll admit it's not exact, and there's a few more stylistic changes we can make to make it look like the form itself. But just using table controls and different things, I made it look as close as possible with the time that I had to what you would actually expect on the W4 form. So with a little more time, a little more effort, you can make a form in Nitro and in SharePoint look essentially like any form that you have out there in the world. So we can do some styling, HTML. There's a lot of controls that we can add to this, and like I said, formatting is not exactly right, but it's pretty close, right? I mean, it's pretty darn close. So again, like I said, this only took me about an hour to put all this together with the tools that we have, and so just to show you how, kind of an extreme case of where you can take the form design to, it just gives you some options and some things that you can do there. Okay, so Jocelyn's informing me that we have a couple more questions.
Sure. So going back to the previous part of the demo, is there a way to have a save button for users to come back to the form with the previous entered data displayed before they submit the form?
Okay, so like save the information, but don't submit it. So I take within that question, there's a different action you want to have happen when you submit the form versus saving the form. Yeah, we actually have a lot of that in our tool already with, take an example, our, onboarding solution has a save as draft option. So through the submit settings and through the submit action settings, you can decide what you want that form to do at different points in the process. So you can have a save button, save the item to your list, but then you can have a different submit button, which would kick off a different action. Now, how you do that, there's a number of different ways it can be done, but it is possible for a form to be saved and then submitted later at a later time. We just simply change the status to kick off a workflow or something like that, whatever needs to be done.
Okay, and last question we have, Walter said, perfect, thanks. And the last question we have is from Rich, and that is on the color picker, can you directly type the RGB values?
Yes, you can. So just give me a moment to jump back over to our previous demo environment and get into Nitro Forms. Okay, so I'm going to share my, nope, not that one. Hang on. All right, Nitro Forms. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so if you're any one of these, if you're doing it on the cell level or the table level, when you're choosing this background color, this is something you can type in. So if you wanted it to be all black, you just go in and type whatever RGB value that you're looking to put in there. So certainly, yeah, I know a lot of companies, a lot of corporations have style brands, style guides and things like that. So you have particular RGB codes or hexadecimal codes that you have to adhere to. So absolutely, yeah, we give you that option to put in here directly what you're looking for. Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other, if there's any other questions, feel free to jot them into the question box. If you want to send us an email directly afterwards, that's fine. If there's anything you want to look at, any of these features that you want to see in more detail, let us know, and we'll dive into it and kind of show you how to play around with it. We're happy to do that for you. So. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're going to be putting this webinar up on our, we'll send you a link to it, and you're going to have the link to that Nitro, the newsroom, which has the Nitro updates, and we're just going to go back in here, just kind of, yeah, ending slide. Thank you for attending. Appreciate everyone's time today. I hope you found it helpful and interesting. And if you, like I said, if anything else comes up, any other questions, we're here to get them answered. Have a great day, everyone.